had always loved camping in the woods. The sound of rustling leaves, the distant chirping of crickets, and the smell of pine trees filled me with a sense of peace. Every summer, my friends and I would make the trip to Maplewood Forest, a place we knew like the back of our hands. We would set up camp, roast marshmallows, and share ghost stories around the fire. This year, however, was different. There were only 3 of us, me, Sarah, and Tom. The weather was perfect as we set up our tents in our usual spot, a clearing surrounded by tall trees that seemed to whisper secrets. As night fell, we gathered around the fire, laughing and reminiscing about our past trips. The warmth of the flames danced in our eyes, and the smell of charred marshmallows filled the air. Remember the time we got lost trying to find that hidden waterfall? Tom laughed, tossing another log onto the fire. Yeah, we ended up walking in circles for hours. Sarah chimed in, her laughter infectious. I smiled at the memories, but deep down, I felt an odd sense of unease. It was a feeling I couldn't shake, like something was lurking just beyond the trees. I dismissed it, blaming it on the isolated location. As the night deepened, we settled into our tents, the sounds of the forest surrounding us. I drifted off to sleep, the flickering flames outside lulling me into a peaceful slumber. The next morning, I awoke to the sound of rustling outside my tent. I unzipped the flap cautiously, expecting to see Tom or Sarah. Instead, I found the forest eerily quiet, the sun barely peeking through the thick canopy above. I stepped outside, scanning the area. Tom? Sarah? I called out, my voice echoing through the stillness. There was no answer. A knot tightened in my stomach as I realized their tents were both empty. I wandered over to Tom's tent first, poking my head inside. It was dark, his sleeping bag still rolled up, untouched. I checked Sarah's tent next, but it was the same story. No sign of either of them. A sense of dread washed over me. Where could they have gone? I decided to look around the camp, hoping to find them nearby. The clearing felt different in the daylight, the trees looming over me like watchful sentinels. I called out again, louder this time, but still there was no response. After a few minutes of fruitless searching, I started to feel anxious. My mind raced with possibilities. Had they gone for a hike without me? That was unusual. We always stuck together. I grabbed my backpack and decided to head to the nearby lake, a spot we frequented. Maybe they had gone there and just hadn't thought to tell me. As I walked along the trail, the familiar sounds of the forest, the chirping birds, the rustling leaves, seemed muted, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. When I reached the lake, I was greeted by the sight of the calm water reflecting the clear blue sky. Tom? Sarah? I called out, but only the rippling water answered me. I scanned the area, my heart sinking further. After waiting for a while, I decided to check the surrounding trails, hoping to find them somewhere along the path. I ventured deeper into the woods, calling out their names. My footsteps echoed as I walked, the silence growing heavier with each passing moment. Hours seemed to pass, and with every step, my worry morphed into dread. I stopped to catch my breath, leaning against a tree. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, relieved to see it had signal. I quickly texted both Tom and Sarah, hoping for a response. Hey, where are you guys? I'm starting to worry. Let me know if you're okay. I waited, staring at the screen, but no replies came. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Maybe they had just lost track of time. But as the sun began to dip in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees, panic crept in again. Okay, I whispered to myself. They can't have gone far. I decided to head back to camp, convinced they would be there by now. The walk felt longer than before, the woods growing denser, the shadows darker. As I neared the clearing, I noticed something odd. The fire pit was still cold, the logs untouched since last night. Where were they? I sat down on a log, feeling defeated. My mind raced through scenarios. Had they gone for help? Was something wrong? I pulled out my phone again, hoping for a sign of life. Just as I was about to give up, I heard it. A distant sound that made my blood run cold. It was a scream. I jumped to my feet, heart pounding. The scream echoed through the trees, sharp and terrified. My instincts kicked in, and I bolted toward the sound, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I ran through the woods, branches whipping against my arms and face as I pushed deeper into the darkness. The screams grew louder, mixed with frantic shouts. My breath came in ragged gasps as I stumbled through the underbrush, desperation driving me forward. "Tom? Sarah?" I called out, my voice cracking. The screams suddenly stopped, leaving an unsettling silence in their wake. I slowed my pace, the sudden quietness heightening my fear. I looked around, my heart racing, trying to gauge where the sounds had come from. Then I heard it again, a low growling noise, followed by a faint rustling. I froze, straining to hear through the cacophony of my heartbeat. The forest was alive with sounds, but this was different. Something was moving in the brush, something heavy. I took a cautious step back, my instincts screaming at me to run. I turned, sprinting in the opposite direction. Branches clawed at my skin as I navigated the darkening woods. I didn't know what was back there, but I knew I didn't want to find out. I ran until my lungs burned, desperate to get away from whatever was pursuing me. I stumbled through the trees, my thoughts consumed with images of Tom and Sarah. Where were they? Had they encountered whatever had frightened them? Just as I was about to give up, I saw a flicker of light through the trees. Hope surged within me as I rushed toward it. The glow grew brighter, illuminating the path ahead. When I emerged into a small clearing, my heart sank. There was the abandoned campsite, but no sign of my friends. The light was coming from the campfire, now reduced to glowing embers. "Tom? Sarah?" I yelled again, panic rising. I searched the area, looking for any trace of them. My mind raced with possibilities. I fumbled for my phone once more, dialing their numbers, but both went straight to voicemail. I could feel the weight of the woods pressing down on me, the shadows thickening as the sun dipped below the horizon. I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't stay there alone and vulnerable. Just then, I heard a noise behind me. I whipped around, eyes scanning the darkening woods. The rustling continued, followed by a soft footfall. My heart raced as I took a step back, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "Who's there?" I called, trying to sound brave, but my voice trembled. The rustling stopped, and in the dim light, I saw a figure emerge from the trees. My heart dropped as I recognized him. "Tom!" I shouted, relief flooding through me, but his expression was different. His eyes were wide and wild, his skin smeared with dirt. "You need to get out of here," he said, his voice low and urgent. "What? Where's Sarah?" I asked, my heart racing. "She's gone," he replied, his face pale. "You have to trust me. We need to leave now." Panic flooded my veins. "What do you mean, gone? Where is she?" He shook his head, eyes darting toward the trees. "We were hiking, and something was following us. We ran, but I got separated. I don't know what happened to her." "Why didn't you come back to the campsite?" I asked, confusion mingling with fear. "Because it's not safe," he whispered. "Whatever is out there, it's hunting us." My heart sank as the weight of his words settled over me. "We have to find her," I insisted. He grabbed my arm, urgency flashing in his eyes. "No, we can't risk it. We have to get out of here before it finds us," he urged. I felt torn, my heart aching for Sarah, but I knew Tom was right. If something was stalking us, we needed to escape. "Okay," I said, forcing myself to calm down. "Let's go." We moved quickly through the woods, Tom leading the way as we navigated the trees. The darkness pressed in around us, the sounds of the forest growing louder, almost mocking our fear. Every snap of a twig made me jump, and I felt eyes watching us from the shadows. We pushed deeper into the woods, the trail becoming less defined as we moved away from the campsite. Minutes felt like hours as we hurried through the underbrush. "Do you think it's still following us?" I asked, breathless. Tom shook his head, eyes scanning the trees. "I don't know, but we can't stop. We have to keep moving." We stumbled upon a narrow path leading down a hill. "This way," Tom said, leading me down the incline. The sound of rushing water grew louder, and I could see the faint glimmer of a river at the bottom. "Maybe we can follow the river back to the road," I suggested, hope sparking within me. Tom nodded, and we picked up our pace, urgency propelling us forward. But as we reached the water's edge, a terrible realization hit me. "Tom, do you hear that?" He paused, straining to listen. A faint, low growl echoed through the trees, reverberating off the water. "We need to move," he said, his voice rising in urgency. I looked around frantically, my heart racing as the growl grew louder. "What is it?" I asked, fear clawing at my throat. "I don't know, but we have to go now." He grabbed my hand, and we dashed along the riverbank, desperate to put distance between us and the unknown threat. As we ran, the growling grew closer, sounding like something heavy was crashing through the underbrush. My breath came in gasps, panic coursing through me. "Keep going," Tom shouted, his grip on my hand tightening as we sprinted. I could feel my legs burning, the branches snagging at my clothes. Behind us, the growl morphed into a roar, sending a jolt of terror through me. I glanced back, but all I saw were shadows and trees. Just then, I tripped over a root and fell hard to the ground. "No!" I cried, panic rising as Tom turned back to help me. He shouted, pulling me to my feet. I stumbled as we resumed running, but the sound of heavy footsteps crashing through the trees echoed behind us, relentless. My heart raced as I felt the ground shake beneath us. We pushed through the underbrush, the river guiding our path. But just as we thought we were gaining ground, a figure emerged from the shadows. A monstrous creature, its eyes gleaming like embers in the darkness. "Run!" Tom yelled, fear etched on his face as we bolted down the riverbank, the creature gaining on us. We ran with everything we had, adrenaline fueling our flight. I could feel the creature's breath on my neck, a terrifying mix of primal instinct and raw power. "Look!" Tom shouted, pointing to a small bridge up ahead. We sprinted toward it, desperate to cross to the other side. I could hear the growling behind us, a low rumble that filled the air with dread. As we reached the bridge, I felt a rush of hope. "Hurry!" I urged, but just as we reached the edge, the creature lunged. I barely managed to grab Tom's arm as we leaped onto the bridge, the wooden planks creaking beneath us. We stumbled across, adrenaline pushing us forward as the creature skidded to a stop at the edge, roaring in frustration. We reached the other side, panting heavily, our hearts racing. We turned to look back, and the creature stood at the edge of the bridge, its eyes locked onto us, primal rage radiating from its massive frame. We didn't wait for it to make a move. We took off running again, racing through the woods, determined to put as much distance as possible between us and whatever had been hunting us. We ran until we reached the road, gasping for breath as we stumbled onto the asphalt. A few minutes later, a car came into view, headlights cutting through the darkness. We waved frantically, relief flooding over us as the driver pulled over. "Are you guys okay?" the driver asked, concern etched on their face. "No, we need help," Tom exclaimed, panic still evident in his voice. The driver jumped out, rushing to us as we recounted our harrowing experience. "Get in. I'll call the police," they said, ushering us into the car. As we drove away from the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I glanced back at the trees, a sense of dread settling in my stomach. Tom and I exchanged worried glances. The weight of our experience was heavy in the air. Sarah was still out there, and as much as I wanted to believe we were safe, I knew our nightmare was far from over. The woods held secrets, and whatever had hunted us was still lurking, waiting for the next moment to strike.